personality shaped by being an athlete and a background in mainstream sports media, I found that the stories I was most interested in telling were the ones often overlooked, the ones that might not otherwise be told, the ones that show the intangible and not just the highlight reel. The Sports Council is about highlighting the great, the good, the unique, and everything in between in the Pacific Northwest sports world. I'm Jamie Council. Thanks for joining me.
You're listening to the Sports Council on 1340 ESPN, the Tri-Cities leader in sports.
Small towns and small schools are often capable of more than meets the eye. Moxie, Washington is a small town in the Yakima Valley. The Yakima Valley produces 75% of the country's hops, and Moxie has been the hop capital of the world since the 1930s, when farmers were growing more hops per acre than any part of the globe. Moxie was also once home to a businessman and passionate sports fan named Earl Barden. Because of his support, Moxie is also home to Earl Barden Stadium at East Valley High School, as well as the Earl Barden Classic.
Mark Mokel, I'm the chairman of the Earl Barden 2A, 1AB Classic. And personally, I came to East Valley in 2010 as a head football coach, and I'd always been around the game. Not really involved, but just around the game, having kids in it. And Coach Alex, he always thought it would be cool to have the Earl Barden Classic at Earl Barden Stadium. So we brought it here when I became the head coach. So we've been here. We built a new high school, and we were gone for a couple of years, and then COVID hit, and we were out for a couple of years as well. So I think we were gone for 4 years. We went back to Zeffel Stadium and at Eisenhower. But we wanted to bring it back to one of our schools, and there's not a better setting here in Yakima. So in the state of Washington, the all-state football game represented all classifications. In 1994, Bill Alexander, who was a longtime football coach at Quincy, athletic director there, he and some of his buddies decided to have a small school game. And so they founded the Earl Barden. Earl Barden was a businessman here in Yakima, and Earl bankrolled him for the first couple of years. And so Alex named the game after him, and we're in our 29th year this year. So kind of cool that the small school kids get to have the stage to show their case of talents.
The Earl Barden Classic features players from the 2A classification in Washington State down to 1B and pits the East against the West. This year's event featured 3 Division I linemen. It's a common misconception that the smaller the school, the smaller the talent. While that's not the case when it comes to some of the top athletes from small schools, the Earl Barden Classic gives players that are often overlooked on a statewide scale a turn to showcase their talent.
Hernandez finds Pater into the end zone for an East touchdown.
If you're a good football player, the colleges are going to find you. We had one kid who's going to Wazoo, and he really, really wanted to play in this game, but Wazoo said no thanks. And he was from a B school in Spokane, from Northwest Christian. And he could have played for anybody. You know, he'd have been a starter for anybody along the way, but that's where he chose to go to school. So sometimes the kids, even though they're at small schools and they're players, they're looked down upon by the bigger schools because they do go to a small school. Being that there was one game, there was kids getting selected from the small schools, but maybe a couple from the 2A and 1 or 2 from the 1A. And a couple from the B ranks, and kids weren't getting into the game, and so they wanted to showcase our talents. For a couple years in the early 2000s, there were 2. I think for 4 or 5 years there was 2 games there was a 2A game, and then there was a 1A and B game. And that's a lot of work to put on. So we scaled it back into one game, but we do select 40 players from both the east side of the mountains and the west side of the mountains, and we try to keep our rosters in the 30s. We've got kids from 1B schools to 2A state champs, So we've got everybody in between. We've got kids that are going to Eastern, Idaho, tons at the D2, D3 level, some community college NAIA kids. Some of this is the last time they get to put it on, and it's special for them to be here for that as well. But each one of these kids are have been a superstar at their school at least the last year, if not more than that. The product that we put on the field is going to be like no other. I had an opportunity to coach in the game in 2016, and the guys that were on my staff, I said, enjoy this, because even if you coach at the college level, you're never going to have this much talent assembled at one time, because they were the player on their team. I had a kid on the team that I played at that I coached on. He played at Chelan, and he's the all-time state leader in the discus. He went through discus at the University of Washington. You don't just get to coach those kids every Friday night. They happen once in a while, but that happens every year for us here. We get that type of kid.
In the Earl Barden Classic, hand off to George. He stood up and dropped.
And for the players that participate, it's not as simple as getting handed a jersey and stepping onto the field or court as it is in other All-Star games. The players come in town on Tuesday, learn the playbook, and have activities all week long that contribute to building their team camaraderie and their character.
We have a multitude of events. This year, we're taking our kids bowling one night. We have a local donor who will donate $100 to the kid that gets the first turkey of the night, 3 strikes in a row. We have a belly flop contest and a pizza feed. Also, $100 goes to the winner. We take them to the movies one night. My John Wooden is a man by the name of Bruce Brown, and Bruce Brown is with Proactive Coaching, and he's worked with Oregon football, Vanderbilt baseball, the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, this guy is national, and when I think about the type of coach that I want to be Bruce Brown. Bruce is retired now, but Bruce is going to donate a day, and he's going to come and he's going to speak at one of our dinners. One of my former students who's pretty big in the Tri-Cities, his name's Jose Iniguez. And Jose was a student of mine out in Mattawa at Walook, and he's a Mexican opera singer now. And so he's coming and he's going to sing the national anthem. And then one new thing that we're doing this year is we're going to do some community outreach. I reached out to Union Gospel Mission here in town, and we're going to go spend a couple hours of our time helping them down at there. They've got a couple facilities that we're going to go help. So we're getting our kids. It's not just come and practice and go back and sit in the hotel room. We're getting them out and we're visible out in the community, but we're also doing cool things with them. And the bowling's so much fun, and the movie time, but also reaching out to our community to say we're not just good football players, we're good people. And so to get out and to be able to do some of those things is important to me, and hopefully it's important to them. It's interesting, the brotherhood that these kids get within this short week, 4 days of practice, and they leave here as brothers. And so as a football coach and as a coach and a teacher myself, I build lifelong experiences for my kids. And that's just what we're trying to do for the kids for this, is to have them leave here with memories that will add to their football memories. I don't want it to be their strongest memory, because it may be that they lifted the gold ball, the kids from Royal. It seems like they get a championship ring every year. So they've already had that, but some of these kids, they'll have that opportunity to play in the biggest game of their lives. So.
Jamie, you have Wiley down here, just a legend in the state.
Speaks for himself. Wiley Allred coaching the East team last year, and something about this game, there can be no two-way starters. So that makes it very tough when these kids have maybe 4 positions playing for a small school. So how tough is that in this game to kind of work around with your player personnel to find who's going to start where they have so many positions?
Well, it's actually kind of nice because you've got a lot of kids that you need to get in the game that all are deserving and all can play. And so it's actually, it's really real nice to do that, to be able to get a one-way start. Our kids last year, some of them played on both sides of the ball at times, depending on what they did and honestly how good they were. But we definitely got everybody in the game. That's one of the goals and objectives, is to get everybody some playing time.
And this year, Royal won their 11th overall state championship, 6 in 8 years, and Dylan Allred was one of those players. And a two-way player, we always joke that being quarterback, you have to play middle linebacker as well. Talk about the play of Dylan.
Yeah, it's been a while now, but he was just excellent all year long. He led our team in tackles, I think, 3 years in a row, and that was with some other really good linebackers. And so we had a hard time moving him from middle linebacker. And then he did a little of everything at quarterback, threw the ball, ran the ball. Just a really good leader, great kid. And then, and Caleb Hernandez did the same thing at running back and outside linebacker for us.
We're going to go back down to Jamie here, and she's got some special guest out of the stands joining her on the sidelines.
Well, we have some fans, something with small schools, is they always support their kids, support their football team, and we have the Farias family. See a fat head of Miguel Farias over there.
That straight fly route wanted the flag, and Rivera just unable to haul it in, and I think that was Lawler that just went right into the bench, destroying the water keg and a glass of pickles of all things.
And a lot of defensive plays, and we saw him the death of the pickles. Let's get a close-up of that. So athletes sacrificing their bodies out here, and took a table and a jar of pickles out with it.
Again, they care about them at the big schools, and I don't know if it's because life is just so fast and there's other things to do in the bigger communities. But Friday Night Lights, when they turn the lights on in the fall, the whole community comes and watches the game. That's just what they do, from the little kids to grandma and grandpa. We like our game a lot better than the big game. We've been around for 29 years, and they struggled to have an event. So I think we do it right. We're a bunch of high school coaches. We don't take a dime from this. We get a T-shirt out of the deal every year, and we get a burger once in a while. But we're high school coaches, and so what we do is we create an avenue for kids to be able to build a memory. Work with our coaches that are members of our coaches association, and try to make sure that each of the coaches in their leagues know the importance of this game. We all have each of the leagues has a state coaches association rep. That's how we identify the kids that are put into the pool to be selected. Each of those leagues, they have their all league meetings, and if you're a first team all league player, then you can be nominated for our game to be selected. So just kind of getting the word out and making sure that those schools that Fife is a smaller school in the Tacoma area, but they're in a huge metropolis, and so they don't know the event that we put on. So getting to that coach, or reaching up into that Bellingham area. Linden is the royal city of the 2As, and to get them to come over here, and they will send one kid every year, but they've got to have more than one kid that can play in our game. Tumwater, they're in Olympia. We don't very rarely get Tumwater kids. So I think being able to get to those coaches and to help them showcase and help recruit those kids will advance our game.
The longevity of the Earl Barden Classic shows it's an event that players, coaches, and communities alike want to keep around. Because small is simply a number put on the population of a town or school, but not on the willpower of the people that live inside it. Much like Earl Barden and Moxie, Washington. Thanks for joining me for this episode of The Sports Council. Until next time, I'm Jamie Council.